Okay, so we are talking about page verification, and there's just a couple more things left to talk about, and then we'll move on to what comes next in an estimate. We're going to get into some details, a little more detail on things we haven't quite talked about yet. I want to talk about the green setup divisions button up in the upper left-hand part of the page. If I look at, let's say, metals. Metals is division number 500, and there's a bunch of items underneath metals, and each of them has their own number. Supposing I'm a metal contractor, and there's one of my tasks that I do as a contractor isn't listed here, and I want to change what it says here. That's what this green setup divisions button is for. If I click on that, I come to a new page, and the new page, if I click on the drop-down menu in the upper left, I can see all of the 16 divisions, and one of them is metals. I'll select that and hit select. Here it is. Here's everything that's listed in page verification for metals. If I want to delete any of these, I can just go ahead and delete them. And then when I hit set changes, that won't be there anymore. If I want to add one, I can add one underneath the last one, or I can add one 6 down and leave some space to add some later. And it doesn't matter. Let's just put one here and I'll show you what happens. We'll say metal girders, just to put something there, and we'll call it 5.12. Now I'm going to set changes. I've deleted one and I've added one further down. I'm going to click on set changes, and now you see there's no spaces here. It just puts all the things that are listed all together. 507 is missing, and 512 is immediately under 509. And then later, I know that I'm going to be adding a couple categories, and I want them to come between 509 and 512. I can go back to setup divisions, and I've left space between these two, so I can add some later. So using the setup divisions button, I can set up page verification exactly the way I want.
So Dan, explain to us what these subdivision 2 and 3 do.
Okay. I'm going to close this a second, and I'm going to show you thermal and moisture protection. Thermal and moisture protection is divided into, it's a division, it's division 7. It's divided into 3 subdivisions, 710, 730, and 750. 710 has a bunch of material categories. And so on with 730 and 750, there's items under each of these. Now let's look that up in setup divisions. Thermal and moisture protection. You can see here's where the subdivision gets named, up in the very top spot in each of the 3 subdivisions. Underneath that, it lists all of the items I want under that particular name. So I can set up any category I want into up to 3 subdivisions, and each subdivision can have up to 27 or so.
So let me see if I understand it then. Thermal moisture protection. Under thermal moisture protection, which is division 7, we've got subdivision 710, which is moisture protection. Under moisture protection 710, I've got sub-categories, which goes from 711 to 721. Correct?
Correct.
And the same thing goes for commercial roofing, 730. We've got 731 to 747, and the same for residential roofing and siding. So it's category, subcategory, sub-subcategory. Am I right?
Right, but what we call them in Isaac is division 7, subdivision 710, and these are all material headings. Each of these will open a list of materials.
Great, okay.
Okay, and so that's all about that.
We're in the estimate in here. If I'm estimating on the moisture, and I'm working on shingles and shakes, and these are what we're looking at this page are what I call subcategories, or you call them materials.
Right.
Right?
So these are all materials, and this top thing with a number beside it is a material category. It groups together a whole group of similar materials. I can click on it once, and it will hide all that list of materials. I click on it again, it'll unhide them all the way down so that you don't have to see this whole long list every time you're doing an estimate. You can keep all these groups hidden and then just unhide the one where you want to add a material price.
That's great work, Dan. Fantastic.
In page verification, we could hide anything we didn't want to see. That's also true in the material page. Any of these categories is open, like aluminum shingles, and I want to hide gable flashing, let's say, I can click on it. When I click on it once, a sub-menu comes up that allows for a bunch of choices of things I can do with the gable flashing. I can insert a blank row above gable flashing. If I want to add something between sidewall flashing and gable flashing, I can insert a blank row above it. I can insert up to 10 blank rows above it, in fact, if I want to add 10 things. We also can insert rows below. We can increase the indent or decrease the indent. And why is that important? That's important because if you want to keep your list of materials organized visually so that you can quickly select the material, the way you do it is by how much is indented. By the indents, I can tell that this mill finish 0.019 thickness is a subcategory of aluminum shingles. I can tell because it's indented. I can tell all of these are subcategories of the mill finish because they're all indented. So setting your indents allows you to organize your page efficiently and effectively. I can hide this row. So I'm going to hide gable flashing. It says hide this row plus any number of rows below. I'm not going to hide any number of rows below. If I wanted to, I could hide up to 10 rows below as well. I'm just going to hide this one row. There it is. It's hidden. I can unhide it. This red button, when I click on unhide, it will show all the things I've got hidden, and I can unhide any of them. So there it is again.
Okay, Dan, can you explain to us under the labor hour, the red button shows locked and unlocked labor hours?
That's right. So the important thing to understand, Amos was talking earlier about the fact that once you have your labor hours here, you leave them set, and you leave them set through all estimates that come after that. And in that way, a bunch of things can happen, and you can job cost effectively, for example. So once you've put it, a labor hour associated with the material, leave it, don't change it. So if I add a material, add steel shingle 4 inches long, and I know it's going to take, each take 15 minutes, so it's a total of half an hour. So the unit is square feet, and the labor unit is half an hour. Now, once I've got that there, I don't want to change it. I'm going to leave it there for all my estimates. If I need to adjust the time, we do it where Amos talked about on page verification under the labor multiplier. I want to leave this, so I'm going to lock it. So I've selected it. I click lock or unlock labor hours, and now it's locked. If it's colored blue, that means it's locked. Now, if you've got 3 estimators, none are going to be able to change that number. It's locked in place, so you can do effective job costing and do everything you need to do. So
good. One more thing before we leave this page. Please explain the price, universal price update and find.
Okay. On some pages, you open them up and you've got this long list of materials, and you want to find something very specific. For example, if you were in paint and you wanted to find all your Benjamin Moore paints, if you click find, you can enter a search term like Benjamin Moore and begin search, and it will find everything that's listed here with that name in it.
Before you go on, I want to say something. What I recommend for you as a contractor is don't populate all the materials on your entire estimate sheets. For example, if you were a concrete contractor, don't populate all the labor units for each one of these. It'll be far too time consuming. Populate them as you create the estimate, and it will eventually fill up your sheets. Now, the important part is, once you populate them, you don't want to have to go back each time and change prices every time there's a price change. And that's why I asked Dan to explain the universal price updater.
Right. So back to the paint example, if you found all Benjamin Moore paints and you've got this list of Benjamin Moore paints and each has a price. So you've got a list of Benjamin Moore paints, each has a price. Now you can click on the universal price updater, and let's say Benjamin Moore raised their prices by 10%. You can just enter 10% in here and update prices. And because what you found is a list of Benjamin Moore paints, it will only update Benjamin Moore paints. So it's a two-step process. First, the find button, find the material you're looking for. Then click the universal updater and update the price for all that specific material. Okay.
And one last thing, what's the refresh button for?
Okay, so when I click on any of these items, I get that submenu that I was talking about. And
for deleting and adding a line.
That's right. But if I was to add a new item, if I click on it, that menu might not come up because the database doesn't know that's there yet. I just wrote it. If I hit the refresh button, what that does is it informs the database that I've added a new item. Now, when I click on it, that menu will come up. That's what refresh is for.
Now the forms will be integral to the database.
That's right. Now the forms are integral to the database. Exactly.
All right. Got you.
One last thing that's a quick thing, and that is at the very bottom, there's 16 divisions, and then we've added a 17th that we've called miscellaneous, and then underneath are 4 empty ones. I can right-click on this and change the name to be whatever I want it to be, so it can be named anything I want it to be. When I click on it, it just gives me an empty page, and I can write whatever I want here. So you've got 4 empty things to write whatever you want and add your own information. And that.
Right. So we're done with this page. We're ready to move to the next level.